Hi, this is Nimla Rednam. In this video, we are going to start the topic data handling, which is the fourth chapter from NCERT textbook class 8. Now, in today's world, data analysis, data analytics has become indispensable in every field. If be it sports or finance or governance or even predicting your elections, any field that you take, data analytics is indispensable in today's world. Now, what do we do with this data? What we are doing here is we will be collecting data regarding a certain event or a certain situation, and we are going to try to understand the data. The data that we have at our disposal has a lot of information in it. So when once we collect the data and sort it out, we will be able to understand the situation with a lot of clarity. And next, what is the next step? We are going to come with some suitable solutions for our problem depending on the data. And more importantly, we don't stop here. We will also be predicting the future depending on the patterns that we see in this data. Okay. I want to start off with a simple example. For example, you have your attendance register in your classroom. Now, you look at the attendance register, it is data, right? It is data regarding your classroom's attendance, who is absent or present on a particular day, and you have all that information data at your disposal. Now, here you can look into it, and for example, you see that a few days, a certain days, in the last 1 month or in the last 3 months, the attendance percentage is very low. Okay, and then you try to understand what could be the reason for this. Okay, and then you might realize that there is a correlation with a particular test, maybe a mathematics test being conducted on that day, right? So you will say that, okay, there might be a relation between a mathematics test on the particular day and the attendance on that day, right? And then you will say that, okay, so this could be the reason that the attendance is low. That is your observation, right? And then how do you resolve it? You will say, okay, maybe it is because students are not understanding mathematics, or maybe because the question papers are very tough, or they're not performing well. These are all the analysis, and you're trying to come up with a solution. Also, one more element to this is you can predict the future also, that next time there's going to be a mathematics test, you can say that most likely that the attendance is going to be very low, right? These all things are nothing but, this is nothing but data analytics. So you are trying to understand the data that you have, and you're trying to come up with a solution, or you're trying to predict the future, right? So here in this chapter, we are going to take the baby steps of understanding what all are different ways of handling the data that is given to you. Now here, first section, we will be looking at what do we mean by a pictograph, a bar graph, and a double bar graph. That will be covering in this video. Later on, we'll be coming to circle graph or pie graph, and then we will go to chances and probability in the coming videos. Okay. So what do we mean by a pictograph? Here you will see that it is representation of the given information in terms of pictures. Okay. So for example, here they have given an example of a pictograph. So here we will be using symbols in order to represent the given data. Okay. Now here 100, one symbol, one car symbol is equivalent to 100 cars. Okay. So in the month of July, you have 100 plus 100, 200 plus half a car means denotes 50. So you have 250 cars, right? So similarly in August you have 3 cars, therefore it is 300. In the month of September you have 4, therefore it is 400. So this is nothing but a pictograph, right? Next. So if they ask you how many cars are produced in the month of July, the answer is 250. In which month were maximum number of cars produced? The answer is September, right? So this is nothing but a pictograph. Next, you have a bar graph. Here what we are going to do is, whatever information is given to us, we will be using bars in order to represent that information. So the height of the bar is going to be proportional to the values given, and your x-axis is going to have the particular category that you are representing. Okay, for example, this is a bar graph. Here you have on x-axis you have got academic years, and on y-axis you have number of students in class 8, right? So you can see immediately as soon as you look at the graph, you can say that there is there is an increase in the number of students in class 8 from year to year. Every year it is increasing, okay? And the height of each bar gives you the exact number of students, right? So here let's answer these questions quickly. What is the information given by the bar graph? We have, what is the information? It is the number of students in class 8 in the following academic years, starting from 2003 to 2008. In which year is the increase in the number of students maximum? Now, what is the increase? You can see that here, for example, in the first two academic years, this is the increase, right? If you consider the second and the third academic years given here, this is the increase. If you consider the fourth and the third, this is the increase, and then this is the increase. So clearly you can see that the increase is maximum from the year 2003-4 to 2004-5. So in which year is the increase in the number of students maximum? So you can say the answer is 2004 to 5. Okay. You can even look at the number. Here it is 100 and here it is 200. So there is a 100 students increase, whereas everywhere else it is either, from here it is 50, here also it is 50, and here again it is 50. So here the increase is maximum. In which year is the number of students maximum? You can see that the height of the bar is maximum for this, and so that year is 2007-2008. State whether true or false the number of students right. So here the number of students during 2005-6 is twice that of 3-4. 2005-6, what is the number of students? It is 250. Okay. During 2003-4, it is 100. So 100 is not twice of 250. So this statement is false. So this statement is false, right? So this is the example. So you will be looking at the data, the graph given to you, and studying that graph, you will be able to answer the questions. Next, you have what is called a double bar graph. Now here what will happen is, on the x-axis, we are going to have different categories for different years. For example, let's look at this example. They have marks obtained by a student for different subjects, and also they want the marks obtained compared to the previous year. So you have 2005-2006 and 2006-7. That means that you will be comparing the marks obtained subject wise for on and also for 2 consecutive academic years. Okay. So that is a double bar graph. So the main intention here is for comparison compared to the previous year and so on. So here a double bar graph is also a bar graph, but it has 2 sets of data simultaneously. Okay. It is useful for comparison of data. Now, so let us look at the data given here. You have marks obtained by a student. The white bar indicates 2005-6 academic year. The grey bar indicates 2006-7 academic year. And all the subjects that are mentioned here on the x-axis are maths, social science, English and Hindi. Now, what is the information given by the double bar graph? It is the marks obtained by a student in the 5 subjects mentioned for 2 academic years, 5, 6 and 6, 7. Okay, that is the answer. In which subject has the performance improved the most? Now here they are asking us in which subject has the performance improved. Now you can see that, let us go subject wise. The performance improvement in maths is this, right? The performance improvement in social science is this. The performance improvement in science is this, and in English it has not improved, it has actually come down, and in Hindi it has remained the same. So in which subject has the performance improved the most? The answer is going to be maths, right? In which subject has the performance deteriorated? By deteriorated we mean the performance has come down, and that is English. Okay, so English is the subject where the performance has come down compared to previous year. In which subject is the performance at par? That is, it has not changed, it's not increased or decreased. The answer is going to be Hindi. In Hindi, the performance has remained the same. Okay, so that is your double bar graph. Now here they have asked a question, think, discuss and write. If we change the position of any of the bars of a bar graph, would it change the information being conveyed? Now here, for example, if you look at this particular double bar graph, okay, here I have five different subjects. So it doesn't matter the order in which I mention these five subjects, right? So for example, instead of math, social science, science, English and Hindi, I can have these subjects in any order. It doesn't matter. It does not change the information being conveyed, or it does not give any false information. So that's not a problem. But whenever you have anything related to time on your x-axis, like year, or time in your, if a car is traveling and you have time in seconds or minutes on your x-axis, then you cannot change the values of the x-axis, because it has to be chronologically placed. So in those cases, the information given, it cannot be shuffled back and forth. But if it is like, the categories are something like the subjects or the car models, or different fruits that you're buying, then the order does not matter. So it depends on the kind of data that we are trying to represent in the graph. So that is about think, discuss and write. Next, they have given three uh, different data, three different sums, where they're asking us to draw an appropriate graph to represent the given information. Now let's look at the first one here. Number of watches sold. Now what are they giving us? Monthly, they are giving us the number of watches that were sold at a particular store. Okay, so in July 1000 was sold, in August 1500, September 1500, October 2000, November 2500 and December 1500. These are the number of watches that were sold. Now, if I have to represent this data using a graph, we will be using a bar graph, right? So what I'm going to do here is, I will be using an Excel sheet. I will input all this information into an Excel sheet and we'll get a graph. That is not how you are going to be doing it. You have to do it on a graph sheet, and we'll discuss that as well. But let's look at how the data looks on a graph. Okay, so here I'm going to take this information and I'm going to paste it on an Excel sheet. Okay, so here I have, right, this is the information given to us. Okay, now what we are going to do is, I want a graph for this particular data, right? So select the data and go to insert and have a graph. Okay, so this is my graph for the given information, right? So here, looking at this graph, what can we say? So here on the x-axis I have the month. So the data is given for the months July, August, September, October, November and December, right? And then immediately when you look at the graph, a lot of things that were not very obvious from your data in the table format are going to be clear to you. Like for example, the sales were maximum in November. Okay, so maybe there is a shopping usually goes up in November and so forth. There are a lot of things that you can conclude from this data. So this is about data representation in the form of a graph for your first sum. Okay, and let's look at the second one now. So here I have children who prefer walking and children who prefer cycling. And they have given this information for three different schools: School A, School B, and School C. Now, here, what are we going to do? You can see that I have a comparison of walking over cycling. That means here I have a double bar graph, right? And then what are the, what do you have on x-axis? You'll have all the three schools: School A, School B, School C. Each school you will have two bars, one for walking, one for cycling, right? So let us look at this. So here I'm going to copy this data and paste it in the Excel sheet. And then I'm going to look at the graph. So let's select the data and then insert a graph, right? That's it. Now you can see here you have got a double graph. Okay, you can see that you have School A, School B, School C. The blue color is for walking, it's mentioned over here, and the orange color is for cycling, right? And you have on the x-axis School A, School B, School C, right? So again, here looking at the data, you can say that School B, a lot of people walk. That you can conclude that maybe in School B, a lot of students stay nearby. And there are a lot of things that you can conclude from this. So this is about the second sum, where you have three schools, and in each school you have the number of students that go walking and that go to school by cycle. Okay, so this is about the second sum. Next, coming to the third sum, here they have given us percentage wins in ODI by top 8 cricket teams. Okay, so you have 8 different cricket teams and they have given the percentage wins in ODI. And there are two different columns they have. One is from Champions Trophy to World Cup in 2006 and last 10 ODI in 2007. So these matches, they have calculated the percentage wins, that is how many wins did they have compared to the how many matches that they have played, and they're asking us to represent this data using a graph. Again, here you will see that you have two different categories, therefore you'll have a double graph, right? So let us copy this data, and here we are going to have, so this is our data, right? And now we are going to insert a bar graph, right? So this is about the performance of different teams. Let me magnify this. Okay, little bit, right? So this is about the graph. You have 8 different teams here, and you have the comparison of blue bar with orange. The blue one is Champions Trophy to World Cup in 2006, and the orange one is the last 10 ODI in 2007. So you will see that the best performing, it's anyway given in order in the table itself. The best performing team is South Africa, right? And you will see that the performance of blue compared to orange is going up for a few teams like South Africa, India, England, New Zealand, whereas for the others it is coming down, right? So this is about representing the given data in the form of a graph. So once you have the graph representation with you, there are a lot of things that you can analyze about the given data, and you can draw some conclusions and then predict how the future performance is going to be, so forth. But for most important, uh, naturally, the first thing is how to represent it using a graph. So in today's video, we have looked at representation using pictograph and bar graph and double bar graph. Now here, when you are doing it in your classroom or in the exam, you will be using graph sheets, right? So there are a couple of very important steps that you have to follow for every graph that you draw from the given data provided to you, right? So the first step, is going to be, in the given data, you're going to first decide what is your x-axis and what is your y-axis, right? You're going to decide what is your x-axis and what is your y-axis. Having decided that, the next step you're going to decide, depending on the values that are there in the table provided to you, you have to decide the scale. Okay, scale for your x-axis, scale for your y-axis. It depends completely on the data given to you. Most often x-axis is going to be some year or some time or so on. Sometimes you might have to use a broken line. We'll come to that as and when we get that that kind of data. So that is about the scale. So for example, you have 1 centimeter, one block in your graph sheet is a square of 1 centimeter dimension, right? So you will decide what is the scale going to be. And then you will decide the same for your y-axis. So 1 centimeter is so and so, right? So that is about your x-axis, your y-axis and the scale. Now here, once you decide what is x and y-axis, in your graph, you will be mentioning it very clearly. For example, this is your x-axis, this is your y-axis, right? For example, let us look at the second question here. We had the children who prefer walking and cycling, school A, school B, school C, right? So the x-axis is clearly going to be the school, right? Like we have seen in the Excel sheet. And the y-axis is going to be number of children, okay? So here what you will mention is number of children, right? Number of children. And here you're going to write school. Okay, so this is your x and y axis, and you're going to mention the scale. For example, here scale, if you have seen, let us look at the graph again. Looking at the graph, we have seen that the the data given to you is ranging from 0 to maximum 55, right? So if you can take 1 centimeter as 5, okay, 5 number of students, or you can take 1 centimeter as 10 number of students, that you need to mention in your scale. Okay, so here you will be mentioning the scale. Here you will be mentioning what your scale is going to be. Y-axis 1 centimeter is equal to let us say 5. If I say 5 students, then for 50 I need 10 blocks, which is fine. So let us say 5 students. So this deciding the scale is the most important part in your graph, because depending on what is the scale that you decide, your graph, that is going to decide how your graph is going to look. For example, if I take 1 centimeter as 10 students or 1 centimeter as 20 students, your graph, the bars are going to be too short, right? At the same time, if I take 1 centimeter as only one student, then the graph is not going to be sufficient also, because you have only so many squares in your graph sheet for your y-axis. And also depending on whether, if sometimes x-axis might have more entries compared to your y-axis. So you can have short, if you know that you're going to have shorter frequencies, you can have a landscape view of the graph sheet and draw the graph. So these are very important, and you need a lot of practice for this, because in the exam, like I always mention, if you have enough practice, you won't get too bogged down with all these minor details in the exam. For example, if you take a wrong scale, like 1 centimeter is 10 students, your graph is going to look too too small, and you will not be able to see the data, represent the data with the lot of clarity. So these are very important. Although they seem to be happening behind the scenes, these are extremely important. That is, you have to decide the scale, you have to decide what goes on your x-axis and y-axis, and at the same time you have to mention all these things very clearly in your graph sheet. Okay, so this is about the double bar graph and your pictograph. Next video we'll be looking at the pie graph, and we will try to complete the first exercise.